I think that means we're live.
I hope we're live.
Hello, Blue Springs. Welcome to Facebook Live with District 2. Do we name our show or anything? The Kent and Chris Show?
Well, yeah, we could. I mean,
Okay.
Depends on whether it goes over really well or not. But
So you still have time if you want to come up here to the Public Safety Building. We do have some people here live and in the audience. Say hello, people. Hello, people. All right.
they're here.
Okay. Hey, look. He used a high definition camera.
We are live. We can see ourselves on the screen, so it's going good. We do encourage you to come up, but if not, text in, email, however you want to do it. Contact us with your questions. We'll try to answer. We try to do these on a semi-regular basis, which means we did, 2 last year?
Yeah, we usually try about 2 a year.
We like to do one once a quarter, but sometimes we don't get a chance to do that. So we do what we can when we can. And we had this night free. We kind of got into some conflict of interest as far as dates and being availability to get to things. By the way, wave, you guys are on the screen now, or were. But now we've got a night we were able to get into the council chambers, and that's where we're sitting at now. Kind of keep it sort of intimate. We're right here close. So we do have staff here to help if you do send some things in. Miranda is going to help us do that. But we do have some things we can go over. We like to update what's going on in District 2. And we do have fellow council people here, Susan Culpepper and Jerry Kaler representing District 1 and District 2. But as Chris will attest to, and I will, 3, pardon me, 3. Everything goes on in District 2, it seems like. We've had a lot of things occurred in the last year in District 2. So a lot of good things. I think if you've been driving around town, there's a lot of things going on in our district, not to put a damper on their district, but we seem to be on the move and on the rack track, as they say, in our district. So
Kent is being too modest. All the exciting things happen in District 2.
True.
So, no offense to you two in the audience, but all the exciting things happen in District 2. And to prove that, we have lots to talk about tonight, so feel free to ask your questions if you have them. But we can start out just with the Parks Department. Do you want to jump in with Parks Department, Kent?
Well, we can. You passed the parks tax. The citizens of Blue Springs did. That's great. Part of that tax was for maintenance and upkeep, and a lot of the older parks, needless to say, are located in District 2. So there was a lot of action going on in District 2. We dedicated new playgrounds in Rotary Park, Ward Park. There's been improvements made to Blue Springs Park. They've been overlays done to some of the walking trails around James, Ward Park, Old Mill, James Walker. They've done some sidewalk improvements over there to make it ADA compatible. I think that's part of some things that are going on. And the big one that's getting started now, if you've been down Woods Chapel Road and looked at Old Mill Park, they're starting on the new splash pad. So they're doing a lot of dirt moving for parking lots, removing the tennis courts. They're doing a lot of beginning work now for Old Mill Park. And what they're doing is hopefully, if the winter goes well, construction-wise, weather-wise, they're on a timeline to try to have that done late spring, early summer. That's going to be a nice improvement for our area and for Blue Springs as a whole. I think the splash pad is going to be very exciting. I think that'll be very well received by the citizens and the kids in Blue Springs. At the same time, they're also putting in a new skate park, new equipment for the skate park. So that'll be improved. That's been there a while. People don't realize how long that's been there, but it's starting to show some age, so we've got some money spent to improve that. So it's kind of exciting things going on over on Woods Chapel.
Yeah, and the maintenance for the parks tax, we had Rotary Park that was finished in May, and then Ward Park that got finished in July. Both of those are in District 2. And then we have Old Mill Park on Woods Chapel, that will be District 2. And then they might get the Wilbur Young in the 1920 budget. So
right.
You guys will get some love still too, don't worry. The parks will get maintained. So, a lot of exciting things with Parks Department. A couple other things that's worth mentioning. The Field House has 3,500 members, and they have 4,000 day pass users of the facility. So it's been a success from day one, and it has its own maintenance built into it, which has been a lot of discussion from other projects from the past. So this one will be good moving forward. We also have expanded the programs. I know my kids do the the little all-star sports program. So that's for 3 and 4 year olds. So we did that, and they had a good time. So there's lots of that going on as well, largely because of the field house. They can offer some indoor things for using that facility. So anything else on Parks Department we're missing? I haven't seen any questions yet about parks. So.
No, I think that covers a lot. There is some of the parks are responsible for buildings, as far as the Parks Department is responsible for buildings, maintenance. They're also responsible for like the walking trails and stuff. So Duncan Road, I believe, was one that was neat. They had some overlay done on it.
Right.
Just recently on Moreland School Road, if you were going west from 7 Highway, they did the overlay on Moreland School Road, walking all the way down, I think, to Vesper. I think that was improved there. That was one that was done this summer. So not everything does happen in District 2, but it does get spread around. But since we represent District 2, we tend to concentrate on that.
And we can brag about it, that's why.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that was all the trails that were done as well. So a lot of movement there for the Parks Department. So any questions about parks? Come on, Kim. I know if Russ were here, he would have a question. So channel your inner Russ and ask us a question about the Parks Department. You got nothing. Oh man. Well, I'm sure we'll get something from Russ later. It'll be exciting, as per usual.
Well, where do you want to go next? I've looked at Public Works, but you've got Community Development up, so why don't you go Community Development?
All right. So again, all of the exciting community development is happening in District 2. So you might have seen at 40 and 7, what is that called? Sunset Plaza?
Yes.
Sunset Plaza, which is like where the Fazoli's is, or everybody's favorite late night Mexican restaurant, Pancho's,
Yep.
Or the Chinese buffet. That strip mall, that's the whole area is called Sunset Plaza. It has been under some construction. They have been tearing down that middle section, and what they're going to do is create a road, a pass-through from 40 Highway that will then match up with Price Chopper where it exits from their complex. And so there'll be a direct shot all the way through from 40 Highway to Price Chopper.
Same developers that did the Price Chopper development over there bought Sunset Plaza, and originally they came in and we're going to do some just basic cosmetic, put lipstick type stuff on the outside, kind of modernize it, make it look better. In their original talks, they mentioned that they would like to do somewhere down the line, open that building up and making that an entranceway to where from 40 Highway that would make a nice open entranceway into the Price Chopper, the Johnny's Tavern, First Watch for Verizon, that whole area. Try to make it to where it looks really good from 40 Highway. And at that time, we kind of put some pressure on them and said, that would be a great idea. Why don't you do that now? Well, they were kind of hesitant, but evidently they found some people that were interested in the project with the idea maybe they're going to come. They had a pad site out front that they were going to market and sell, and I believe they had that marketed and sold. So that's why that construction happened. They're really wanting to try to tie that in and make that whole area a complex. And while we're over there, you might as well comment on Mall at Fall Creek.
So Mall at Fall Creek is let me go back to that project.
Okay.
That was done with a CID, so it was some incentives. They approached us, and that's what with the CID they were just going to do some facade upgrades. Yeah. And we said with some sort of incentive, we generally expect some sort of improvement benefit to the community, and that's where the discussion about the pass through. And there's also the potential pad site there. I think they maybe floated a name, but I'm not sure if that's public, so maybe it's worth not saying much about yet. So there may be an additional pad site there on kind of that corner. So that was done with the CID. That's a community improvement district, and so that's where that project is kind of started from. Then if you go on the other side of the Price Chopper development, there is a development called the Mall at Fall Creek, and there was some discussion about a B&B theater going into the other large part of that facility. So Side Pockets, who just finished some renovations themselves, they just put a patio out there. They're in the one big section of that, and then there's the other big section that B&B Theater is going to go in there. That's been the plan, the announced plans, but they have not actually turned in any plans to the city, so we don't have timelines or anything concrete or in paper yet. I think they're already doing some changes to the old Risa Nichols side. I think the plan is to move the fitness center down there. So hopefully they really expect after the first of the year, at the beginning of 2019, that we'll see some
They
concrete
do have
plans.
I did talk to a gentleman that does a lot of work for B&B. I do know him, and there was a lot of remodel work that needed to be done to that to convert that over to a theater. Air handling units up top, additional air handling units. So it's not their general from the ground up type deal. They're doing a remodeling, and so that took a little bit more architectural, plans, design work. There's a lot of things in there that took a little longer, that they couldn't just do a cookie cutter, pick up what they did in Liberty and bring it down here and plop it in Blue Springs. But it is supposed to be similar to the Liberty one as far as scale
Right.
and what they offer. So that should be a really nice improvement. A plug for Side Pockets, you
Yes.
mentioned that one. They've gone smokeless. Non-smoking facility. That's why they put the patio outside. So if you haven't been in there in a while, you might go in. They also have put in a ton of old games, Centipede,
Arcade,
Frogger,
Pac-Man,
yeah,
old
all
arcade
all the
games.
old stuff. So if you got an urge to go out and play some old games, go see Side Pockets. A good place.
I see why you held the public works stuff for you, because those are the real exciting projects coming up that
Yeah.
everybody's happy about. So, well, let's see so the perennial issue in District 2 is a shopping center, a grocery store on Woods Chapel.
Yes.
It is not dead. We have nothing to announce, but at least the two of us continue to try to get something done. So the most recent news that we have, the developers for that whole project, it's a CVS, right? Not a Walgreens. The CVS there in that whole shopping area, they have hired a new sales team, and their, I'll say, main goal, they are actively seeking a new grocery store for the old IGA building. So that building that used to be a grocery store anyway, they're hoping to just get one to relocate there. It's the same thing we've been telling you, so it's nothing new, but there is still new activity there. There's a new effort, so it's not dead. We haven't forgot about it, but that's probably a good segue into one of the other issues that we often have with businesses in Blue Springs. We talked about often that we can't force somebody to bring a business to Blue Springs.
Right.
As much as we want to, we want a grocery store real bad, but we can't just tell a grocery store, you must open up on Woods Chapel in Blue Springs. The best we can do is create the policies and the incentive programs and the atmosphere to where businesses want to come to Blue Springs.
Encourage them to be here. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. And we've tried, I think the entire council has been committed to that direction. I think we made a lot of good improvements as far as the development community feels about Blue Springs. On the flip side, something that's come up with some discussions recently, we also cannot really deny a business from coming to Blue Springs. So sometimes people ask, why are you letting this whatever go there, this restaurant open there, this stop open there? As long as they are consistent with the zoning requirements for that spot, they don't really need our permission to open up business. And so really the only control that we have as far as where a business locates is whether or not they're consistent with the zoning that's there. And sometimes they're not, and then that's when they come to us and say, hey, we want to rezone this property because of the type of business we want to be there. But otherwise, as long as they meet the zoning requirements and they check all the boxes, they can open up and they don't need our permission. The one area where we've had made some changes there, and this came up with the Spirit presentation we had a couple weeks ago, we have been able to limit certain types of businesses as far as the number per population, per
Right.
demographic. So we've done that with certain types of businesses.
We can do
like-
some control as
Yeah.
far as the numbers of and location, vicinity to churches, vicinity to schools, public facilities, that type of thing. There is some control we can do with that, but if they want to come and it's already been approved, they can come back and reoccupy that position if they want to. So
Yeah, and then to do something like that, we are able to do it. We've done it with things like whether the payday loans have restrictions,
Yes.
tobacco shops, tattoo parlors,
Yeah.
massage parlors, all have restrictions.
But
But
that's just restrictions on the number of liquor store permits
Yes.
that we can have. So, there's some things that we do regulate to some extent, but by and large, there was one time there says how many Mexican restaurants could we have in Blue Springs? Well, as many as they want to come.
yeah,
And but we have how many McDonald's or how many, it just depends on what you want to do. If they think that the market's there and they can make a go of it, more power to them.
yeah, we have to have a compelling reason to do something like that. We have to prove that there is some reason to restrict the number of those types of businesses, some community interest. Otherwise, it's, we could get sued for just denying a business because we don't like them. It's unconstitutional federally. So one thing I want to answer, a quick question I've seen coming in, Matt, couple of things. I don't know what the utility work is at Cemetery Road and 15th, but I will find out. Maybe I can get to our public works director before we're done here. As far as you're talking about the abandoning locations, returning to green space, we are having some discussions like that. It's not a policy we currently have in place, but District 2 has had those discussions with staff, and I'm sure it'll be making its way to the other council people when it can kind of get formalized. But I don't know if that is done in other cities, but there may be some sort of policy where we can require, if a property is vacant for X number of years, that the property owner has to
We've had
raise
that
it.
conversation too, as far as, for example, we've had some houses that have caught fire and they're not habitable. And some of them have sit for a long period of time, and it'd be nice to have a way of trying to prompt them to be either rehabbed or tore down because they become a hazard. Those type of things we're looking at and see if there's areas that we can try to improve, that those neighbors that are around there don't have to live with that all that period of time. And we understand that there's insurance claims they have to go through, and there's a process they have to go through that takes time, but there's a lot of times that 2 years, some things sit with a lot of stuff, trash around. We try to work within our codes department to try to help alleviate that and rectify that. So if you do have problems like that, that's what we're here for. You call us, let us know, and we try to get codes out there and look at it and see if there's something that they can do.
Yeah, I know Councilman Culpepper here in the audience has had some success dealing with some of those. So it takes time because it's personal property. You don't want the government just coming in willy-nilly and telling you what to do with your property. But at the same time, there's a community interest to protect property values and public safety and all those things we've talked about. So I think it will work all together. We have an audience question. Jump in here. What would you like, sir?
My name is Doug Stacer, and I live in King Ridge.
We're going to get you a mic, Doug.
My name is Doug Stacer. I live in Kings Ridge area. And since you brought up codes, why is codes strictly a complaint-based, complaint-driven? Why couldn't they drive around once a week or something like that and look for certain things that, we don't always travel around the area all around Blue Springs, so we can only get what we are area. Why can't they do once we just kind of drive around and take a look? Why can't they just drive around and take a look instead of all complaint based?
Sure. So what Doug asked, if it wasn't clear over Facebook, so Doug asked, currently the way codes in Blue Springs has traditionally worked is that they are a responsive department, a reactionary.
Yep.
So they go look at an issue when there's a complaint, and they really have never proactively address codes issues, and the reason for that's just been that's how we've done it, and there's never been a real appetite to change it. However, funny that you should mention that, Doug. Just this week, last week when we had our meetings with staff, that has been discussed. There's no new policy. We're not making big changes, but you may see a little bit more proactive approach from the codes department. That has a lot of pluses for some of the things you're talking about. It will also have some drawbacks because there will be people that will complain about getting undue attention from the city government. And so that's kind of where the balance has been, but there has been some interest in being a little more proactive.
Yeah, we
So you probably
have
see that.
in some aspects, we have as council people tried to be a little bit more proactive on some of the major things. Councilman Kaler and I know Chris, you have too, complained about maybe some of the signage stuff. For example, some of the signs were there on the corner of 7 Highway and I-70. Some of the tall signs have been badly damaged for a long time, and we've harped on that, and finally got those people to come back and do some cleanup on that and get it back to order. We try to work on that on some other things where we find issues that are seems like they're not getting taken care of, and so they may get pushed to the back burner. Sometimes we have to go in and say, hey, can we move this to the front burner if possible and try to get some of these issues taken care of. So that's where you do have a problem sometimes. Call us. We had a lady that came in earlier before we started that has an issue over in District 3. We'll relay that to you later, Susan. But that's what we can help with that, and we can try to put the name in front of somebody or the address in front of the codes and say, hey, go look at this and see what you can help do. Some areas we can't. We're not, some things like on 7 Highway with the highway and curbs, we get complaints all the time about how bad the curbs look in the center islands and the medians. That's a state highway. That's out of our jurisdiction. We can't do that. We can tell Public Works, Chris Sandy can try to get in touch with his counterparts with the state and say, hey, when can you do this, or can you do something about that? But it's all dependent upon that. So those state highways, AA, 40 Highway, 7 Highway, are all state. That's out of our jurisdiction as far as what we can and can't do.
So let me try to answer a couple of questions that are coming in on Facebook here. Matt got some word from our Public Works Director. The Walnut Street construction seems to likely be AT&T fiber installation. They've been doing it in lots of places in the city, so they're going to be adding conduit and pulling the in-ground boxes. So shouldn't take a real long time. It's a utility thing, so it's not really city controlled. It takes about maybe 30 to 45 days in each area that they're working.
And speaking of construction, that's one of the things we didn't get to. Downtown Blue Springs. Downtown Blue Springs has been going through its renaissance. It really has improved. Some nice restaurants down there, some places to come down and enjoy yourself. And one of the things that has been on the drawing board for years, and by years I mean 20 years or whatever, of trying to come up with a gateway marker, some way of determining when you're coming up 7 Highway that if I turn right here, I'm going to the downtown district. And if you've been downtown, you've seen a couple of pylons right off of 7 Highway surrounding some holes. Well, those holes are there to pour concrete in to come about the new gateway that's going to be going in downtown. There's some drawings on that. I think if you go on the city website, I believe they have some illustrations on that. But that is all privately funded. That is not done by the city. That is privately funded. They're going through and raising money to put that gateway marker in to determine downtown. So that's something that has been long desired. It hasn't come about because of the city. It's come about because the Downtown Alive and those merchants down there getting together and working to get those things done. So if you drive through down that way, that's what those holes are for. So look for that coming this summer.
Yeah, and Councilman Culpepper is on that board. I know she's just a little bit excited about that gateway, right? All right, I knew you would be. Catherine, I forgot to mention when we were talking about the Woods Chapel development, there has been some discussion from those that developers to tear down the old Quick Trip. Yep. Again, we don't have a policy that we're requiring to do that, so we can't force them to, but they're talking about demolishing the former Quick Trip. They're also talking about some facade upgrades to that whole property and also some additional pad sites close to Woods Chapel. So if there's some activity going on there that would be against city codes, then if you can let somebody know, we can have them come address it. I'm not sure that truck parking would be one of those activities, but it's definitely something we can look into.
Yeah, we depend upon how long those trucks sit.
Yeah. We do have some policies of truck parking, especially if they have signs on them.
Right.
William, yes, there are city council elections coming up. That the notice just went out today. Filing opens December 15th. Anybody know exactly? I believe December 15th.
Yeah.
There is one city council seat from each district. One in District 1, one in District 2, one in District 3. For District 2, that happens to be me. I will be up for re-election in April. Carla, the homeless living behind the roller skate. I'm not familiar with the group there, but we have occasionally had some issues along those lines. Again, if it's something you can let us know about when it occurs, we can have it addressed. So I know we've had some issues off of Witch Chapel like that occasionally, but once we know about it, we address it pretty quickly. As far as requiring, certain brush to be cleared if it violates codes, we can do that. So if you can let me know what property that is specifically, we can have codes look at it and see what might be able to be done. The abandoned building behind Price Chopper, is that just waiting for the development of the...
That is, if you notice, they've actually come back and cleaned up the landscaping. That's the old Golden Corral. I believe
Right.
that's what they're talking about.
Is that what it is?
At one time, they did have interest in tearing that down and someone coming and building a new restaurant there. I believe that has been put on hold. I don't think the whole thing has been dropped. But at one time there was, they would look at that as being two pad sites right there. But they had somebody that was interested in one and had explored it. I know they even went to the point of even making an announcement of who that person was, that restaurant chain that was there. But evidently, the last I heard was that kind of had hit a wall and it wasn't out of the picture, but it's not going forward. So.
Yeah. Everybody, just like the old Ponderosa building or other properties in town that have been vacant for a while, we're excited to have projects that might replace them. We were pretty excited about that one, and unfortunately, it didn't pan out. So it's not a done deal till the ink is dry.
And some of those, the property owners are still paying either property tax on it, they're still paying maybe payments to a bank on it. I mean, there's still an active one as far as an ownership. So even though the building's empty and you think, well, surely somebody should be doing this, if they're still up to date on their taxes and on their payments, there's not much we can come in and do other than making sure that the building is not an unsafe condition. If there's a door ajar, or somebody's ripped off a window or broke it out, we can come back and make them force them to board it up, that type of thing.
Melody mentioned an historic sign between 18th and 19th on Main. I'm not familiar with that one, Melody, but I made a note, so we'll follow up on that. Catherine, I don't know. Is there another Scooters going in somewhere? I don't know if a Scooter's going in, so that would be good if there would. But
only two I know of what we have already.
Catherine may have inside information, but if there's a Scooter's going in, we're excited about it. So
yeah,
I like Scooters. They have good models, so I'm okay with it.
Especially if it's in District 2, because we're
yes, because all the exciting things happen in District 2. You mentioned downtown. East 40 Brewery is pretty exciting. That's been open for a little while now. Have they reached a year yet? Right at it.
Yeah, just about.
Yeah. So that we've been getting a lot of attention for businesses wanting to locate downtown. So lots of exciting stuff happening. When we get the gateway funded, that will be exciting too. So there's lots happening there, and we have been getting a lot of interest, largely because of East 40 Brewery. I think it's the cool thing everybody was been waiting for downtown.
Yep.
Along with the all rather exciting things down there. So
now, if you've got any questions out here, jump in.
Yeah.
Don't let us ramble long.
Don't be shy, Doug. Come on. I know you got more.
So you headed for Public Works yet, you think?
No, I think I'm done with development. If you want to jump into Public Works, I'll kind of browse the questions here.
Okay, Public Works. Well, in our district, the big thing is 7 Highway and South Highway, or South Avenue, which is where the new Aldi's went in. So we're happy to see that happen. Something else new. They came back, tore down the old building, built a nice new big building. If you haven't been in, you need to go by and check it out. It's always busy, but you can get in and out pretty quick. But the issue with South Avenue was the post office closed downtown. They moved over to the other satellite location on South Avenue. And when they did, we knew we were going to have an issue with traffic. And so we've been working on that for a while, and we finally got the state involved in it. And so right now, there is a timeline to put an intersection in on South Avenue. And this is one that's going to be funded through the state with a partial payment from us. We pay for part of it. The project is scheduled to start in 2020 and would be completed by the fall of that year. They would be, if I remember correctly, we have a widening of South Avenue on both sides. So you'd have left-hand turn lane and right-hand turn lane and straight through, so it would open it up. With the Aldi's going in, they do have a dedicated right-hand turn, so that part of it is. But it's a good project. It's been a long time coming. It was high on our list as far as things to do, so we've done that. They gave us some numbers on it. The cost of this project is a little over $500,000. $400,000 of that is provided by MARC, Mid-America Regional Council. They go through their congestion mitigation, air quality grants, things like that. We were able to come up with money. 20% of the city's match went into that. So we're leveraging our 20% to be able to get that improvement done, which is kind of how we work things. It's kind of like what we did when we went with the Woods Chapel and worked on it. We leveraged 20% against 80% to be able to do some of those improvements over there. So anytime that we can try to do that, we try to jump on board and go. So look forward to that. There'll be some congestion over there, but once it's done, I think that'll help that area out tremendously. Because if you've ever gone to the post office and came back out and wanted to turn south on 7, you're taking your life in your hands half the time doing that. The other thing that's going on that would be of interest to District 1, Jerry, this is in your district. The state is going to come back and do a sidewalk project that goes from I-70 all the way down to Pink Hill Road. And I know the mayor has always wanted more sidewalks on 7 Highway, so he's always kind of pushing for that. So that project is scheduled to start also in the spring of 2020 and also run through the fall. That project is a state-funded deal. Again, 20% match from the city of Blue Springs. The total expected to be like $750,000 on that project. The city's going to pay up to a certain amount for design work, property acquisition, things along that line, but look for that somewhere down in 2020. Actually have a sidewalk that would run all the way from I-70 all the way down to Pink Hill Road. So pedestrian-wise, that really helps. Which kind of hits another thing. I don't know, Chris, if you want to jump in on this. The CBG funds where we use for sidewalks, that we kind of hit at with James Walker Elementary doing some of the improvements. Sidewalks, I know Chris was big on pushing on our annual budget to make sure we set aside sidewalks. We, as a council, went through and adopted sidewalks that used to be responsible for the citizens. We decided that if we were to maintain them and try to keep up on them and improve them, it had to be something that the city took on. And so what we're trying to do now is, as we improve roads, we also take some of our money and use that to do the ADA corners, trying to get those compatible or compliant, should say, with ADA. So that was one of the things over with James Walker Elementary right around there, was getting it ADA compliable and using those funds for that.
Yeah, that's the CDBG funds, which is the Community Development Block Grant. That's a federal program that, because the city of Blue Springs is of a certain size, I think it's over 50,000, we qualify for those funds from the federal government. That I'm going to do a quick plug that the census is coming up. Fill out your census card, and I'm sure Carson will holler about it when we get closer. Mayor Ross will holler about it gets closer, because if you're not counted in the census in Blue Springs, that is important services that we may not qualify for if you don't fill out your census card. So, plus we are currently, as of the 2010 census, we are tied to the number 52,575. We are tied with the city of St. Peter's for 10th largest city in the state. So if they grow faster than we do over the last 10 years, then we're going to be 11th, and we don't want that.
Yeah, and who would want to go to St. Peter's?
Who would want to go to St. Peter's? Yeah. So anyway, so CDBG funds, Chris gave us an update that what's been worked on most recently is just like the James Walker Trail around that area, as you mentioned. So I think they're still working on. There's actually a meeting tonight. Did one of you just come from that meeting? Yeah, both of you just came from that meeting. Okay, so there was a meeting tonight that was going over some of those plans. the bids for the next contract is due the end of this month. So we'll start to see some of those plans come out and here in the next couple of months.
Okay, also while we're on that, there's also a couple of those programs that are under that grant money. First-time home buyers, there's some money there. If you're a first-time home buyer, you can apply for money. We have grants that we can provide to help get into a home, help to offset some of those costs on that. We also have home improvement grants. If you have issues, driveway issues, paint, siding, windows, things along that line, you can come in and apply for that. Those have been fairly successful. We've been doing that for almost 10 years.
Yeah, right at it, yeah.
So that really goes on. I mean, that's some useful tools out there. If you've got some problems with your home and you don't really have enough money to cover it, come in and apply for a grant. You know, we have some grant money that may take care of that painting or may take care of those windows that you've been having a problem with. Driveway improvements, any of those things can qualify for that. So, you know, get in touch with staff and see what they can do to help.
Yeah, Catherine asked a question about addressing the homeless situation in the community, and I think you might have saw Matt answered that question a little bit. The Spirit Council also made a presentation about that as well. They're having some conversations about what that might look like in Blue Springs, what sort of services, and their main point was there are services out there. There's things like the Community Services League that provides some clothing and food, that type of assistance, but their main concern was there's not a single resource to go to find those services. So they were making some recommendations on those lines. There's also some recommendations to have some, what's it called, a life skills center or some life skills programs. So there's some things like that in the work. There's nothing concrete yet, but those conversations are being had. We have a shout out from John Pennington with Bike Stop. He said he's a proud resident of District 2, Bike Stop is, and the downtown corridor. So can't forget that as well.
That's true.
I'm trying. I think there was one other question that I don't see now. So going back to your development issues there. So both the Roanoke project.
Yeah, I kind of was waiting on that one.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead. You can go for that. That's District 1, so I'll let you handle that one.
No. I was going to say, so the lights at Aldi and the sidewalks from I-70 to Pink Hill, those are both planned to start in the spring of 2020.
Correct.
And done by the end of that year. So 2020 is going to be a big year for development on
and
7th
both of those
Highway.
are an 80-20, so 20% of the city money, 80% of grant money coming from state. But the Roanoke project...
Go ahead, jump in on Roanoke.
Well,
Jerry, do you want to tell us
you
about
got the papers up there. Sure, yeah, you can come up and fill in on this one if you want. Roanoke is east of Adams Dairy. This was a county road, or built to county road standards. And the citizens out there, with our expansion over in District 2 to the east, we're concerned about that road. It's dangerous. It has a hill that kind of tops over, and you know the kids are waiting at a bus stop, and it's got a lot of issues with that. We had a lot of citizens come in and address the council and express their concerns about that. And so we decided as a council that we would do improvements to Roanoke. And that's a $2,850,000 project. That's supposed to start in the spring, midsummer of 2019. We're in the process of getting right-of-way acquisitions, things along that line, and then we'll get started on that. But we'll bring that up to code. So that will be, I believe it comes up to a collector street. Jerry, am I correct in that? It will be a collector street. So there's certain things you do on a collector that you don't do on a residential. There's a little bit of money going into that, but I think that'll be a great improvement over there in that area for District 1.
Yeah, and that was largely necessary because of all the housing development that's going up there in District 1. So lots of houses being built up there, lots of houses being built down south. So hopefully we can get those population numbers up for 2020. So
yeah, and we still rank. I don't have it in my notes, but I know that we still rank, I believe, number 1, or we're tied as number 1 in the number of building permits in the metro area on the Missouri side. We are number 1. I see fingers out in the audience that are pointing for 1, so I'm assuming that's what you're meaning. And that's both. Most of that growth has been on either the north or south end of Blue Springs. So You guys are making things happen out there. Thank you. Yeah, I hope you understand that we do a little bit of fun back and forth with our counterparts in other districts within Blue Springs. We all do get along really well, and the citizens, I think, benefit by our ability to kid around with each other and have a good relationship. So, at least as of the tonight, we did. Oh, a hand out in the audience, Chris.
All right, Miss Lori, what's your question?
Hang on, I'm bringing you a mic.
We're gonna mic you.
Otherwise, the guy back behind the curtain gets after me.
Well, it's wonderful to hear about all these improvements. I live right off of our demise, and I live east of 7, and I noticed that we got a resurfacing on the west side last year, and I was just, and maybe I just haven't, I'm not aware if there's going to be some improvement on the east side. And my particular situation is I turn left on 5th Street, and there's the lines are all faded. You can't. Sometimes you feel like you're in the middle of the road and people I've had them honk at me, or then I feel like they're going to hit me head on because I know where the lines are. It used to be, but it's kind of
They wore down.
yeah.
So, Ms. Lori, we actually had some word from our Public Works Director about that. This year's pavement maintenance program, which is what does that, is the contracts for the next year are in the works now. So we don't have any final locations for where all that's going to go yet, because they're working it right now. So do you have more word from the CDBG funds? Is that what you're about?
We ran that program.
Oh, that's right. We did a survey of all of the streets in the city. I think that's what Public Works is now working off of. So as with the sidewalks, because that was a new program, and with our pavement program every year, we attempt to address the most needed areas when we have the funds.
And as far as the painting on roadways, I do know we try to concentrate a lot of times around schools, markings there to make sure they're visible, and you'll see those get painted probably a little bit more regular than maybe some of the streets. But if the streets do need painting, I think that's something that we can come back and do to at least get the center markers in and stuff to where we're okay.
We mentioned earlier I was at the beginning, so we've gotten a few more questions about grocery stores in Woods Chapel. Our update from our developers out there is that they've hired a new sales team. They're they're actively trying to sell a grocery store in the old IGA building. So I think I've seen the old Quick Trip, there's some movement to tear it down. There's been some suggestions of certain places along Woods Chapel. So that's all at the purview of that developer, and they have not forgotten about us. We keep pushing them, and they're continuing to be concerned.
We keep after them. We say, what can we do to make this happen? A lot of that is grocery stores are developed on rooftops. They want to know how many rooftops within a certain radius there is. As the development happens both in Blue Springs but also in the western part of Independence, that's going to influence how fast that all develops over there. So with all the road improvements we did, though, it definitely makes that a lot nicer area to come to. So they do have a lot more to offer as a developer to try to encourage somebody to come. So we don't forget about that one. We keep that always on the back burner as far as trying to push for those.
While we still have everybody's attention before they start checking out on us, I am currently the liaison to the Public Safety Board, and Miss Cindy Hood reminded me this time next week at 6:30 on Tuesday the 27th is the Public Safety. They have an annual forum as part of their charter that they hold, and it will be again in this room, in this building, 6:30 next week on the 27th. I believe it's going to be Facebook Live as well, yes.
Yeah.
The program as it stands now is an update from the chief, sort of a state of the department address. So he's going to just talk about the police department in general, what they're doing, what things are happening, and he'll give a lot of information from top to bottom. Plus, we have a new deputy chief that was just sworn in a month ago.
Yes.
And so he will be there as well. So a lot of exciting stuff happening with the police department. So don't forget, next week on the 27th at 6:30. I did check, Catherine, I believe it was you earlier on. Apparently the scooters, I don't want to swear by it because it's not a done deal, but there may be a scooters going in on Woods Chapel, which is what I think Catherine's talking about. So
that'd be good.
The public knows it's we're going to get.
While you're on public safety, And we just did a little report, I had a little report, you put it out, so of some of the crime statistics and stuff. And I know there's a lot of activity on Facebook that when all of a sudden, like, what's happening over in this area? Why are the police over in this area? You see some things that happen on Facebook faster than what we even get those reports. Just to give you an idea, though, some of the crime that's going on, some of it is increased, some of it isn't. Some of it has gone down. So Blue Springs still is a safe city to live in. We have a great police department that is active, trying to stop things from happening or be preventive, be proactive. So if you got any questions or concerns about that, do come to the Public Safety Advisory Committee, because they're the ones that are kind of a channel to the police department for things. So good place to come and make your comments.
Yeah. We've got a question from Scott Casey about the recycling center situation. There is no update about the recycling center, nothing in the budget currently, but the new kind of movement on that is a lot of discussion from the Mid-America Regional Council about doing some kind of group recycling center with surrounding municipalities. So we just, last night I think it was, kind of entered into some discussions with specifically Independence and Lee Summit about what we can do to better use our tax dollars in every city to do some economies of scale and to not duplicate efforts. So if there's some efficiencies that we can do, like have a large recycling center that it makes
like a
financial
regional
sense,
one,
a regional center
for certain areas. Yes.
Yeah, so there's some movement in that direction. There's, again, discussions, nothing concrete that we can announce. Melody asked something about leaf removal. We don't currently have any city support for leaf removal, and I don't know that there's been a lot of talk about that. So something
And
we can
I
kind
would
of
encourage you, don't blow your leaves into the street. That doesn't do anybody any good.
Well, and that's what Melody's suggesting, that there are some cities where you do blow it in the street and then they pick it up for you. So that is not how Blue Springs is. So currently there are ordinances that if you block the drainage and there's a rainstorm and it clogs up the drain, you can get in trouble for that.
Yes, you
so
can.
Blowing it in the street, the codes, unless they see you do it, aren't going to write you a citation.
But if a neighbor start complaining about it,
yes.
sorry.
It is what it is.
Yep.
Do you have a question or okay?
Okay, I'm coming.
Got another question that has to do with codes. In your glossary, it says inoperable vehicles. We've tried to complain on a next door neighbor on that. And your definition says any motor vehicle that is unable to operate or move under its own power. It shall also mean any motor vehicle that is in an abandoned, wrecked, dismantled, scrapped, junked, or partially dismantled condition. Well, at one time they said they couldn't do nothing about it because it had any flat tires. It wasn't, but it hadn't moved now in 4 years. And the tag on the back of it is 2014. To me, and it's dirty, they're using it to hold crud in it. To me, that should be an abandoned there just because it's unregistered. Legal, it's not legal anymore. Just because it's in a driveway shouldn't mean that it's not abandoned. And then we want to know if there's a way we can get something in that definition updated to be able to make that for a code. Say you either need to put it in the garage or do something else with it because it's an eyesore.
Right. Well, I'm sure, I mean, if you've had those talks with codes and they apparently have some interpretation of what those definitions mean, so probably something along the lines of whether or not it's capable of moving, whether or not it actually is moving. But as far as codes updates goes, we've had a lot of discussion recently about some codes updates that several of us would like to see. So that's part of, we can have that discussion as part of that as well. There's usually, I mean, it's not something, codes are not generally something we can just change the next council meeting because of the impact that they have to be consistent with certain standards. And if we change those standards, then we have to have a darn good reason for it. Otherwise we can get sued for not being in compliance with those standards. So I remember that discussion happening with the swimming pools over the summer. There were some swimming pools they were selling at Walmart that were taller than our codes allowed without building a fence around it. And so, people are asking, well, why do we do that? The reason we do that is because that's what the national standard is, and we can change it. But if we change it and something happens, then we create a liability problem for the city. That why you have to have a really good reason to say why you deviated from that standard, because then you create liability. So things like that, codes are their own animal, but absolutely we can have those discussions to see if that definition can be updated. I don't see any more questions, Ken. We're running down towards the end. We covered all our information.
Doing pretty good. We're coming up on 7:30.
We got like 8 minutes, so if we don't get any more questions, we'll have to do a song and dance number. We did practice. What did we practice? It was a duet. You were going to take the high parts, I believe.
Yeah.
Councilman Kaler, yes, he's got those docile tones.
And, I'll be, we should be nice and come over here and say, Councilman Kaler.
Absolutely.
Councilman Culpepper, is there anything you'd like to say on Facebook Live?
No, I think you're doing a good job. There's a lot going on in the city. We're very proud of the progress that we're making. The good thing about our council right now is we listen and we try to be proactive and take care of the concerns of our city residents. And we are very proactive on economic development, bringing tax dollars into our city.
Absolutely. Councilman Kaler.
Ditto.
Man, a few words
The
here.
catchphrase lives on. There's a question on Facebook, and actually we had a resident that was here earlier that had to leave. Again, talking about abandoned property and codes and that sort of thing. Clayton Ward specifically asked about a house in Lake Village, that'd be District 3. So Clayton, if you can send somebody an email with that address, it may already be in the works. There are things we can do, and there are things we talked about addressing. The resident that I was here earlier, those usually take a process, because again, this is private property. Even if it's vacant, somebody owns it. Sometimes the bank owns it, and that's even worse, because getting the bank to do something is worse than pulling teeth. So something can be done. We have a process by which to get it done, but we have to start that process at some point. So if you can let us know specifically which property that is, either send an email to one of your Council 3 representatives, or even one of us, we can get it in the right hand and start that process. So
a lot of times what we do is when people call us, then we call staff and say, hey, Public Works, can you handle a pothole? Or hey, can you do this with codes? They have to go through a process of doing that. A lot of times we have to follow up with them, so we don't mind you calling or emailing back and letting us know, hey, it's been a couple of weeks, what's happened here. We try to do what we can with your tax dollars as best we can, evenly distributed over this whole city. So sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get something done than maybe you want, but we're trying.
Absolutely. So I just thought of an analogy. If we're a city on the move and all the cool things are happening in District 2, does that mean we're the engine that's moving the city?
Ooh, it could be. We do have tracks that come right through District 2.
You guys should see the eye rolls from our fellow council people in the audience. It's exciting. So we got about 5 minutes left. This is your last chance for our audience members to become Facebook famous, be on camera. We
do thank you guys for coming out. We really do. It's nice to have what we consider a good Facebook Live is kind of laid back. You answer questions, we'll try to answer them. We'll try to do what we can with it. So we do try to do this on a somewhat regular basis. It all depends on schedule, weather, and what's going on. So we actually are talking and putting pressure on staff maybe to possibly this year in the summer go out to, for example, Burris Old Mill Park and actually do a Facebook Live there, so showing you what's going on with the new splash pad and maybe the skate park. I don't know, Chris I don't want to get you up on a skateboard, but
I could try.
You can try, yeah.
No,
so we'll try to be a little bit more proactive with this stuff, but again, we'd like to know what's going on in our area, and hopefully you want to know what's going on in your area, so let us know and we'll try to respond to that.
Catherine, for damaged sidewalks, you can just email one of us. We can let Public Works know if it's a significant damage and it's a safety concern, then Public Works probably responds pretty quickly with those.
Public Works has their own concrete crew we found out it was cheaper for us to hire a dedicated crew within the city that goes around and does curbs, sidewalks, that type of thing. So they can usually follow up pretty quick on those
Yeah.
type of deals.
Potholes also. If there's a big pothole in the street, we're on top of it really quickly. So the more long term, if there's some deterioration happening, those are just like the streets. Those are long term projects that will take a while, but we'll get to them.
Jerry, while you're here, Mayor's Christmas lighting ceremony is coming up December 4th.
Yes.
Okay, and at 5:30, but the location has changed because of the construction of the City Hall
Here.
downtown, which we didn't mention, but that's one thing going on in District 2. That is going to be moved over to the municipal parking lot, which is to the east of the Public Safety Building. You're familiar with that because that's where the city market is during the summer. And so that's where you park for the courts. But that's where the lighting ceremony is going to be. Get there early because of traffic, parking. Would like to say that the parking behind the bank, just to the north of the Public Safety Building, is a private lot, so we urge you not to park there, please. They do have parking over in Central Park, which is south of the Public Safety Building, right next to where the old depot is at, which they just finished doing their grand opening on, and it might be open that night, you never know. So we encourage you to come down for that, get in the holiday mood, and see the lights get lit.
Yes, City Hall should be reopening the spring, is all we know. Is it March
Right.
or May, as what we've heard? April. So somewhere in the spring, March, April, May.
Yeah.
If you've already noticed, so the big part of that project is connecting the two buildings, and that part looks to be done. So it's becoming a cohesive unit, and community development's pretty excited about it, probably because they've been relegated to the back lot building for like 20 years now, and so now they'll actually be part of the rest of the city staff. So they're excited. And then yes, we did mention the depot.
Yes.
We had the big grand opening for that about a month ago, and that's pretty exciting as well. So that's now another facility.
They are open
Saturdays or Sundays.
Saturdays, Sundays, and a Tuesday or a Thursday, I think.
Might be.
But they do put a sign out front. It's really interesting to go down there. They've got some nice memorabilia in there that they've got from the railroads and stuff that had happened. So if you really want to see what an old depot actually looked like from the inside out, they even got a telegraph. You can go in and play with a telegraph key. So if you remember what that is. Sorry, Chris, you probably don't know what that is, but I do.
I have a VCR at home. Does
There
that
you
count? All right. All right. Well, I think that's all the time we have. So if we need to wrap up, any final thoughts from the audience? We need a thoughts to ponder from the mayor. We should have thought about that ahead of time.
Well.
Get our own. What was it? Go Chiefs last night, but that didn't work out well.
Yeah, didn't work
so
out well.
that might have been everybody's gonna go. Walmart was really busy last night about midnight after the game because I was there. I'm not gonna say why that is, but I think some people were drinking their blues away. So, all right. Well, everybody have a happy Thanksgiving. We will see you next time.
Yep.
And enjoy the holiday.
Appreciate you guys, staff, especially
staff.
for helping us do this. David, the guy back in the back room, you don't see him. He's like Wizard of Oz. He's got this curtain that pulls across, so ignore the guy behind the curtain. But that's David, and a lot of things you see on the city websites is responsible for these two people that are here tonight helping us out. So thank you very much.
That's right. All right, everybody have a good night. See you next time.